I'll tell you what I want to know right now before we go any further. Did the Jacksonville Jaguars win the Super Bowl last year?
Oh, you're serious? No.
Will they ever win the Super Bowl?
Jason, I can't predict the future. But no.
Hey guys, it's me, Dr. Pigskin. The doctor is in. Now, for years, the Jacksonville Jaguars have been one of the worst franchises in the NFL, but a lot can change in a year. After winning a playoff game and making the divisional round last year, things are looking pretty good in Jacksonville. They've gone from being the butt of the joke in NBC's comedy The Good Place to being in the NFL's Good Place. For those that haven't seen the show The Good Place, well, don't fret, this is still a football video, but just let me explain what you guys need to know. The show's premise is pretty simple. In the afterlife, when you die, you either go to the bad place or the good place. The bad place is full of demons that will torture you in creative ways, while the good place is, well, heaven. Now, when you really think about it, the NFL can be seen in the same way. There are teams in the bad place and teams in the good place. The Jaguars have spent almost their entire life in the bad place, being tortured by demons like Urban Meyer. But that's all changed, and that's what we're going to talk about today. They've got a young franchise quarterback, they added a legit #1 wide receiver, they have a one-man wrecking crew on their defensive line, and they have an unsung genius leading their secondary. Ladies and gentlemen, the Jacksonville Jaguars are in the good place.
Also, the Jacksonville Jaguars are good now.
Impossible.
I'm serious. They're gonna make the playoffs.
So, what exactly does this mean for the Jaguars? Obviously, there's not an actual good place or bad place in the NFL. It's just a silly analogy that I made to make this video more fun. Now, to put things in more concrete terms, how about I just say this instead? The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be really, really good next season. I'm talking top 2 seed in the AFC and a legit Super Bowl contender. Today, I'm going to be talking about the 4 players that I think can vault the Jaguars into one of the elite teams in the NFL. Oh, and to keep the fun analogy going, it just so happens that all 4 of them have some pretty striking similarities to the 4 main characters of The Good Place. What fun! Alright, so with that in mind, let's get started.
My whole life I have lived in your shadow, but now I'm going to step out of it. I am going to reach heights of success and sophistication that you can only dream of.
Your cardigan's on inside out.
I know!
It's only fitting we start with Trevor Lawrence, right? He commands the spotlight just like Tahani. Both are tall, with hair falling effortlessly down their shoulders, perfect in every way, and yet somehow always in the shadow of their contemporaries. Just like how Tahani's sister Camilla always looms over her, Trevor Lawrence seems to be overshadowed by young quarterbacks like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. But should he, or should Trevor Lawrence be praised like them in his own right? Well, I'm just gonna go out and say it. Trevor Lawrence is my MVP pick for next season. I honestly think he's already a top 5 quarterback, and he's only going to continue to get better. A lot of people point to his performance in the wildcard game against the Chargers as the moment he arrived, but if you've been paying attention, you know he's arrived well before that. He's been playing at a high level for a really long time. Lawrence's development in his second year in the NFL was staggering. He threw for 4,113 yards and 25 touchdowns to only 8 interceptions, while also adding another 5 touchdowns on the ground. He was especially dominant in the second half of last season. From week 9 to the end of the regular season, Lawrence was actually second in the NFL in completion percentage and had the second best touchdown to interception ratio in the league, and the Jags went 7-2 during that stretch. There are 2 things I really want to highlight with how he improved in his second year, and let's start with playmaking. A lot of people see Trevor Lawrence as a pocket passer, but I think that's a bit of a misconception. While it's definitely true that he performs at a very high level from the pocket and his pocket awareness is already some of the best in the NFL, it's not quite as simple as that. What really turned him into an elite quarterback last season was that he added the skill of playmaking to his game. Lawrence is a really good athlete, but that seems to fly under the radar whenever people talk about him. Just a reminder, he is 6'6" and can move, but it took a while to translate to the NFL. One of the biggest growing pains Lawrence experienced early in his career was learning how to use his athleticism and make plays out of structure. If you haven't watched my video on Kirk Cousins, you should go check it out, but if you have, you'll remember me stressing the importance of quarterbacks being able to buy time with their legs, throw on the run, and scramble for extra yards in today's game. You know, playmaking. It's an important skill, but not an easy one to master. It took about a year and a half, but when Lawrence started to master it, his career took off. In the first 8 weeks of last season, Lawrence's passer rating on throws outside of the pocket was 71.1, which was 20th in the NFL. But from week 9 onwards, the same stretch that he and the Jaguars caught fire, his passer rating outside the pocket jumped up well past 100, and he cracked top 5 in the NFL in that stat. He has some pretty impressive tape to back up those numbers too. Just look at some of these throws. I like this one versus the Cowboys in particular. Look at the situation. 3rd down and 3 with 12 seconds left, down 3 points and not in field goal range. Gotta have it. The Cowboys get a lot of pressure on Lawrence early before the play was able to fully develop, but this is where his athleticism comes in. That extra second he buys is crucial. I want you to watch Zay Jones at the bottom of your screen. That's who this play is designed for. But he's not open right away, and the pass rush is closing in quickly. Lawrence does a really good job of not panicking and keeping his eyes downfield. Jones uses that extra second to find open space, and Lawrence fires a dot while running to his left. That is a high-level play in a big-time situation. The Jaguars probably don't win that game if he doesn't make that throw. Do you want another good example of Lawrence making plays out of structure? Well, how about we go to the famous Jaguars-Chargers wildcard game? I remember watching this play and thinking, wow, what a great idea by Doug Peterson. Well, guess what? This wasn't actually the play that Doug Peterson called. Trevor Lawrence improvised this on the spot. So let me recant my statement. Wow, what a great idea by Trevor Lawrence. But playmaking is only one piece of the pie, or Waffle House waffle, if you will, when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has always been seen as a really smart quarterback, but one of the most surprising things about his rookie year was him just looking lost at times. Now, then again, that makes sense when you remember the team was terrible and coached by Urban Meyer. But all of that changed last year, and Lawrence's football mind was on full display, and it was glorious. Most notable is how he was able to get the ball out a lot quicker. In his rookie season, the average time it took for Lawrence to throw the ball was 2.87 seconds, and that might sound pretty quick, but it was actually 10th slowest amongst qualifying passers. In 2022, however, his time shot up to 2.59 seconds, 4th quickest in the NFL. For a young quarterback, it's impressive how Lawrence is already one of the best in the league at quickly going through his reads and being decisive with the football. It helps him with facing pressure too. Defenses blitzed Trevor Lawrence in 2022 more than they did in 2021, yet despite that, in 2022 he took fewer sacks, fewer hits, and had fewer hurried throws. That, kids, is the power of getting the ball out quick. That's not the only way his brain shines through. He has an elite ability to read defenses. Let's go back to the Chargers-Jaguars wildcard game, because why not? Brett Coleman did an excellent breakdown on this game. I recommend you check his video out, but to sum it up, the Chargers ran mostly cover 3 in the first half to counter the Jags' quick passing game. And for a half, it worked really well. But the Jaguars made some halftime adjustments to force the Chargers out of their defensive comfort zone. The biggest play that this stands out on is a long touchdown pass to Zay Jones in the 3rd quarter. Just look at how wide open he is. This is a perfectly dialed up play to counter the defense the Chargers were running. Another great idea by Doug Peterson, right? Well, you'd be wrong again. On this play, it's actually Trevor Lawrence that reads the Chargers defense at the line of scrimmage, changes the play call to this, and as a result, they get a wide open touchdown. I don't say this lightly, but that is legit Peyton Manning level stuff. A lot of people, and myself included, lamented that we were never able to see Andrew Luck in a functional organization with good coaching and good talent around him. Well, guess what, people? This is our chance right here. Trevor Lawrence is absolutely in that Andrew Luck level category of talent, intelligence, and ability to just play the quarterback position, and it's really happening. The Jaguars have surrounded him with a great team, great coaching, and he's ready to take the next step. And one of those reasons he's ready to take the next step is the addition of Trevor Lawrence's new best friend, who also happened to be Tahani's new best friend.
You're right. I don't belong here. Michael made a mistake, but I'm trying, dude. I'm really trying to be a good person, and I think I'm changing for the better. So just please don't rat me out.
Eller Shellstrop was a bit of a head case. She always seemed to make poor choices and just really had bad habits of getting into trouble. But all she needed was a change of scenery and some new friends around her. You know, she always had goodness inside her, but she just really needed to step out of her normal life and really unlock her true potential. Hey, that kind of sounds like Calvin Ridley. The Jaguars took a bit of a gamble and traded for Ridley at the trade deadline last season. They're betting that they can parlay their success from last year and hit the jackpot with him. They're no longer underdogs. Ridley is a huge prize they picked. While fans may duel over the impact that he'll have on this team, I'm all in on Ridley being the missing piece of this offense. It's been a while since we've seen Calvin Ridley on a football field. He missed all of 2022 serving a suspension for gambling and only played 5 games in 2021 due to injury and difficulty with his mental health. But the last full season he played in, he was a monster. In 2020, Ridley was second team All-Pro, catching 90 passes for 1,374 yards and 9 touchdowns. He's still only 28 years old, and I believe the talent is still there. Now, before we dive into Ridley's impact on the Jaguars specifically, I want to clear something up. There's a lot of people that say Ridley was only productive because he played alongside Julio Jones, but that's just objectively not true. In his career, Ridley has played 13 games without Julio Jones, and guess what? His stats are actually better in those games. In those 13 games, Ridley has 89 catches for 1,137 yards and 5 touchdowns. Over a full season, those numbers project to 116 catches, 1,486 yards, and 6 touchdowns. I don't think this is an Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster type situation. Ridley is absolutely good enough to be a legit number 1 receiver. So with that in mind, how will Ridley help this Jaguars offense? For as pleasantly surprising as this group of pass catchers was last season, there's still a lot of room for improvement. The Jaguars were actually tied for the most dropped passes in the NFL last season with 39 and lacked both depth and a true alpha in their receiving core. To help us better understand what I mean when I say that, let's take a look at Gini coefficient. And don't worry, I'll explain what it is. Now, for those not familiar, and I won't blame you if you weren't, Gini coefficient is actually a mathematical model used in economics to measure equality or inequality in wealth distribution, but in this case, we're going to use it for football. A Gini coefficient can range from 0 to 1, with 0 meaning perfect equality and 1 meaning perfect inequality. For this purpose, we're going to use it to determine the equality or inequality in a team targeting their receivers. A team with a target Gini coefficient of 0 means that every single pass they threw over the entire season went to a different receiver, while a team with a target Gini coefficient of 1 means that every single pass they threw was targeted at the same receiver. Does that make sense? I'm not much of a math guy myself, hardy har har, but I hope I explained that decently well. Anyways, the Jacksonville Jaguars' target Gini coefficient for the 2022 season was 0.757, third highest in the league. That really surprised me, especially considering the other teams with high Gini coefficients. While the Eagles, Raiders, Vikings, and Cowboys all have superstar wide receivers dominating target shares, the Jaguars were targeting Christian Kirk and Zay Jones at a similarly high rate to players like A.J. Brown and Justin Jefferson because they had to. Now, I'm not saying Kirk and Jones are bad players because they aren't. They had pretty good seasons last year. But adding Calvin Ridley should give Jacksonville a little more flexibility. Kirk can transition into a wide receiver 2 and Jones can transition into a wide receiver 3, both much more natural fits for them. Add in a rejuvenated Evan Ingram at tight end and this pass catching unit suddenly goes from a group of overachievers to quietly one of the best in the league. Besides just being a great player, Ridley elevates this offense by just being another option that defenses have to worry about. But he's more than that too. I like the fit for Ridley specifically on this Jaguars offense. If there's one thing this Jaguars receiving core really lacked, it was a true threat on the outside. Christian Kirk, their leading receiver from last season, lined up in the slot on over 67% of his snaps, while the Joneses, as in Zay and Marvin, occupied the outside. They were fine. Zay Jones had a pretty good season. He was second on the team in receptions and receiving yards, but Marvin Jones had probably the worst season of his career since his rookie year. He posted low numbers across the board and recently turned 33, so the Jaguars let him walk in free agency this offseason. You know, even though he wasn't very productive, Marvin Jones still was the Jaguars' primary outside receiver last season. He lined up out wide over 86% of his snaps. So why would they do that? Why would they let him go? Enter Calvin Ridley. Ridley's skill set and build might make it easy to profile him as a slot receiver, but he's not. In his career, Ridley has lined up out wide on over 83% of his snaps and was out wide on over 88% of his snaps in his monster 2020 season. He's exactly what the Jaguars need, a high-level, outside receiver that can win on short, intermediate, and deep routes. It's kind of common sense, but adding a legit #1 receiver is the best way that you can develop a young quarterback into a superstar. Jalen Hurts took off when the Eagles added A.J. Brown, Joe Burrow took off when the Bengals added Jamar Chase, Josh Allen took off when the Bills added Stephon Diggs. You see what I'm saying? Well, it's probably fair to say that Calvin Ridley isn't quite as good as those other three receivers. The Jaguars don't need him to be. Even if he's just a good starter with the upside to have an explosive game every now and then, everything else that he brings to this offense will solve a lot of problems. Just like how Eleanor and Tahani's friendship was the foundation for them becoming better people, Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley's friendship is going to be the foundation for them becoming better players. See? Everyone's happy. Anyways, that's enough about the offense. Let's go and talk about this defense, because I've got a lot to say.
I'm telling you, Molotov cocktails work. Anytime I had a problem and I threw a Molotov cocktail, boom, right away. I had a different problem.
If there's one word that sums up Jason Mendoza, it's chaos. He's the man with a plan and a Molotov cocktail. He already brings a lot to the table, but once he learns to truly channel his chaos, he becomes unstoppable. Trayvon Walker is an agent of chaos too. He's every bit explosive as a Molotov cocktail, always hucking explosions and fireballs into opposing backfields. He's a bringer of mayhem, and if he can learn to channel his chaos, he too can become unstoppable. Some of you might be surprised that I'm talking about Trayvon Walker because, seriously, no one talks about him. He's got to be the least talked about #1 overall pick since Eric Fisher back in 2013. With not many people talking about him and the fact that he finished with only 3.5 sacks his rookie year, it might be easy to already write off Trayvon Walker as a bust. But what if I told you that Trayvon Walker is actually already a really good player and has the chance to be one of the best in the league at his position? Walker has done one thing really well his entire football career. He did it well at Georgia, and he's doing it well in the NFL. He can set the edge. Few edge defenders play the run more effectively than Trayvon Walker, and it's making a huge difference on this defense. In 2021, the Jaguars were one of the worst run defenses in the league, ranking 24th in rushing yards allowed and 21st in rushing EPA allowed. And for those that don't know, EPA stands for expected points added. It's a pretty common advanced stat. With Trayvon Walker in 2022, the Jaguars jumped from 24th to 12th in rushing yards allowed and 21st to 6th in rushing EPA allowed. In just a year, the Jaguars went from one of the worst run defenses in the league to one of the best. While it's fair to say Walker alone isn't responsible for such a dramatic improvement, his impact is easy to see on the field. Let's go back and take a look at the Jaguars' Week 18 game versus the Titans. Winner goes to the playoffs, and loser, well, they don't. This Jaguars defense came into the game with one goal, and that was to stop Derrick Henry. And you know what? They did. Yeah, Henry rushed for over 100 yards, but the Titans averaged only 3.8 yards per carry that game, and they scored only 16 points. That's a win for the defense. This was one of Walker's best games as a pro. He was all over the place, and it was awesome. This is one of my favorite plays from Walker's rookie season. Usually, a Derrick Henry stiff arm is a one-way ticket to the bad place, but watch this. Walker sets the edge, gets off his blocker, and overpowers Derrick freaking Henry, setting up a 3rd and long. This is just one of many examples of Walker making plays like this. It's a big reason why the Jaguars' run defense had such a dramatic improvement. Even in plays where Walker himself doesn't make the tackle, he's always disrupting gaps and forcing running backs to improvise. By setting the edge, Walker makes life a lot easier for the linebackers, and it should be noted that a Jaguar, Foye Oluokun, led the NFL in tackles last season. But as great as he's been against the run, that's not why the Jaguars drafted him number 1 overall. We want sacks, we want pressures, we want the quarterback going down, right? Well, he wasn't a very productive pass rusher his rookie season. I think there's a lot of room to grow here. Trayvon Walker has all the traits of an elite pass rusher. He is legitimately one of the most athletic defensive linemen in NFL history, with an unfair combination of size, speed, strength, and explosiveness. It's all just a matter of him learning how to use it. Adjusting to the NFL is a learning curve for every rookie, but Walker had to learn to play a new position in the pros. At Georgia, he wasn't really your prototypical edge rusher, but he's played almost exclusively on the edge in the NFL. And for a rookie that's learning a new position and role in a defense, he showed a lot of promise rushing the passer. Even back in week 1, Walker gave us a glimpse of what he could become. The right tackle on this play didn't stand a chance. Walker got off the ball so quick and showed really impressive bends to turn the corner and get to the quarterback. But what I really like about this play is Walker using his hands to beat the tackle. You see, kids, the key to being a good pass rusher isn't just being athletic. You have to have a lot of moves that you can use to beat your blocker. While he didn't get a lot of sacks, Walker actually has a decent amount of pass rush moves in his bag. He just needs to learn the nuances a little more. Sort of like how a pitcher needs to mix pitches and locations to keep a hitter guessing, pass rushers need to mix up their moves to keep their blocker guessing. He started to get the hang of it a little at the end of the year. His tape improved a lot and he generated a lot more pressure. In weeks 1 through 8, Walker was averaging exactly 2 QB pressures a game. Not ideal. But from week 9 to the end of the season, Walker's average increased to 3 QB pressures a game. It's not an insane number, but it's a noticeable improvement, and again, Walker was learning how to play this position his rookie year, so there's a learning curve to it. But he's given us glimpses of dominance throughout his rookie year and played his best football at the end of the season. The flashes and athleticism are already there. If he can just refine his technique a little bit, he is going to be a force. You know, this Jaguars defense is a lot better than some people give it credit for. They get a bad rap for no reason. Did you know they were actually 12th in the league in points allowed last season, and they've got a lot of talented players. Guys like Tyson Campbell, guys like Darius Williams, Josh Allen, Andre Cisco, who we'll get to in a sec. But if Trayvon Walker can develop into an even decent pass rusher, this unit is going to be terrifying. And hey, if Jason Mendoza can learn to channel his chaos, why can't Trayvon Walker too?
I just saw a trillion different realities folding onto each other like thin sheets of metal forming a single blade.
Yeah, the time knife. We've all seen it. Let's get back on track, bud.
Chidi Anagonye is brilliant. He's one of the brightest minds in his field, and after seeing the time knife, possesses the ability to see every single possible reality unfold before his eyes. Andre Cisco is kind of the same. He's the brains of this Jaguars defense, one of the brightest minds in football, and playing back as a deep free safety, he needs to see every possible reality that could happen on any given play. Now, if you aren't familiar with Andre Cisco's game, well, don't worry, his old head coach wasn't either. But as we should know by now, Urban Meyer made a lot of mistakes in his time as coach of the Jaguars, and not playing Andre Cisco was one of his biggest. Cisco is a bit of a dying breed in the NFL. While most of the league is obsessed with stacking 2 safeties deep down the field to prevent big passing plays, the Jaguars play by their own rules. They use 2 high safeties at one of the lowest rates in the league. Their other safety, Rayshon Jenkins, played up in the box on 437 snaps last season, which was 3rd most in the NFL. Almost half of Jenkins' snaps were spent in the box, ready to play the run, and with Jenkins in the box, Cisco was often left all alone to play that center fielder role, a lot like Earl Thomas and Ed Reed back in the day. And relax, okay? I know obviously Cisco isn't as good as those players, but they do a lot of the same things. So why would the Jaguars do that? Why are they zigging when everyone else zags? Well, one reason is because they can. Andre Cisco is a really good football player. He's got the talent, the smarts, and the athleticism to operate in that role. He can see the whole field really, really well, and when you pair that with elite athleticism and instincts, well, he can do it. I watched a lot of tape on Cisco, and one game that really jumped out to me was their Week 10 matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. Playing against the Kansas City Chiefs might be the toughest assignment in the NFL for a safety. First of all, you've got Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, Andy Reid dialing up the plays, and oh yeah, have fun with Travis Kelce down the middle of the field. But guess what? That didn't matter. Cisco had himself a game. Cisco and Mahomes were in a battle of wits all game long, and believe it or not, Andre Cisco was the winner. Let's take a look at this play. 3rd down and 2, Cisco is the lone safety up top and comes flying in with a huge hit to force an incompletion. Mahomes is looking to his left for most of the play, trying to look off the safety, but Cisco has been doing his homework, just like Cheaty would. He knows Mahomes wants to go to the right side instead and breaks on the receiver. You might have seen a flag fly on that play, but ironically enough, it actually wasn't for his hit. It was defensive holding, and it wasn't on Cisco. That wasn't his fault. He did everything he could on that play. Let's take a look at another play. Alright, 2nd and 9, Mahomes facing some pressure. Oh, here comes some more Mahomes magic, right? He's gonna buy time, fire. Oh, it's intercepted! Andre Cisco! No, it's not flashy, but it's a textbook safety play. He quickly picks up the running back and does a great job of sticking with him in coverage and gets an easy interception as a reward. A lot of these improvised plays by Mahomes go for big plays because defenses see him run around and get confused amongst all the chaos, but again, Cisco doesn't take the bait. Now these plays are great, but it's just 2 plays from an entire season. In order to really appreciate Andre Cisco, you have to consider what the Jaguars are asking him to do and what he really does for this defense. Being able to play with one high safety has helped this Jaguars defense a lot. In some ways, you could argue Andre Cisco is just as big for their improvement against the run as Trayvon Walker is. In a way, those two kind of go hand in hand. Since the Jaguars are so comfortable with him as a single high safety, it unlocks a lot of different things they can try with their defense. If they want an extra guy in the box, they can bring in an extra safety or linebacker. Maybe they want an extra corner on the field. It's up to them. They can do it. They've got the extra guy. This is what I love about good defense. It all complements each other. Yin and yang. Wait a second. Jason and Cheaty. You see what I'm saying now? It all comes full circle. Now that is defense in the good place. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. Let me know in the comments down below, how do you see the Jaguars doing this season? I spent an ungodly amount of time watching Jaguars film, looking for stats, and I even rewatched all 4 seasons of The Good Place. So please, like this video and share with your friends. If you're new, subscribe to the channel and stay a while. Check out what else I've got going on. That's all I've got for today. Until next time, take it sleazy.